And what would a Friday morning be without a visit from our favorite county attorney? It's the only county attorney, but it's our county attorney, Kirsten Pabst. Good morning, Kirsten.
Good morning, Peter.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm much better than I was last week, thank you.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. Ugh. But anyway, moving along from that. So the reason that we have you on the show every week, aside from your wonderful sunny disposition, is to tell us what's going on in the county attorney's office.
Well, I'm ready to give you the weekly criminal rundown. We've had, sadly, kind of a violent week this last week. Filed and opened a total of 15 new cases. The most of those cases were theft cases, which is interesting because generally our methamphetamine cases top the charts, but we had 5 theft cases and then one additional deceptive practices case. And deceptive practices is very much like theft. It just is a different form in that it's generally using a stolen credit card. Moving on, then we had 3 assault with a weapon cases plus an additional aggravated assault case.
I think we had a knife and a baseball bat and a pipe.
The baseball bat was last week, Peter.
Oh, it was? Okay, sorry.
When you were not feeling well. But we had actually 2 knife cases. One of them involved a knife and a gun, and then a metal pipe, and then a strangulation, sadly. Right. We had 2 felony drug cases, methamphetamine cases, and a criminal endangerment case that we talked a little bit about last week, but it was brand new, involving that chase through town.
Right.
A failure to register as a sexual offender, and finally a burglary case involving a break-in of a residence that involved the taking, allegedly, of quite a substantial amount of personal property from the homeowners.
What sort of stuff were they taking?
Well, I can look that up for you, but I don't.
Someone ate all of my animal crackers. I think it was my 3-year-old.
Probably a bit more substantial than that, I would imagine. So if we could just really quick go back to you and I have talked a little bit about the partner family member assaults that deal with strangulation, and it just seems like that's becoming more and more prevalent. And I spoke with a psychologist who kind of gave us the idea of the whole power of having quite literally your life in someone's hands. It is terrifying.
It is absolutely terrifying, and some of these life-threatening injuries really are hard to detect through forensic evidence, and so we rely on the statements of the victim and the officer's observations at the time. And over the last several years, we've really tried to move towards an evidence-based prosecution of these types of cases, anything involving domestic relations, because we know and we generally expect that it's difficult for a victim to follow through with prosecution. And so what we're doing is we're gathering as much evidence at the time, including video, photographs, witness statements from the kids, so that then we can use that at trial instead of relying on a victim having to testify against her abuser.
Now, let me ask you this. Is there any sort of does it graduate basically to aggravated assault if it's strangulation, or is it down there still as a misdemeanor?
The strangulation cases, that is a felony. It's aggravated assault, so long as we can prove that the victim believed that she was in fear of her life.
Wow. Is that something that's easy to prove?
It's sadly so many times when a victim is strangled, she loses consciousness, she loses control of bodily functions, and oftentimes there's that imminent fear of death.
And so obviously that would be an aggravated assault, which is, I believe, 20 years in prison, right?
The maximum is 20 years.
Wow. All right. Well, I guess it's really important, especially for women, to come forward when this happens, and the sooner the better to be able to collect evidence, right?
Absolutely. And then we've got our nurses and physicians that are trained in observing things like that, too, and making notations of those so that can also be used.
So when people
later,
go into an emergency room situation and the doctor or the nurse immediately can tell that this person may have been strangled.
and it's a question now that the detectives are trained to always ask. And that wasn't necessarily the case in the past.
When you say that doctors and nurses are trained to look for this, do they go through special classes, or is it just part of the curriculum at nursing schools these days, or what?
Some of them do and some of them don't. We have our First Step program where those nurses are specifically trained to look for items of evidence while they're also helping to counsel the patient. So we try to direct several of the cases towards those folks who are specially trained in that area, but we also have great cooperation from our emergency room personnel as well.
Let me ask you this: what in a situation like that, where someone is in fear of their life, are there steps that the judge can take to make sure that that person is no longer anywhere near physical contact with the victim?
Well, we can incarcerate the defendant, hopefully. We generally ask for a higher bail in situations where there's risk of bodily injury. Incarceration is really the only guarantee that there's not going to be contact. Short of that, if the judge releases a defendant on bail, we can ask for conditions such as checking in regularly, having a probation officer check on them, putting them on GPS monitoring, and there's various levels of that as well. So there are steps that can be taken. We highly encourage victims to get orders of protection as well.
Sure. All right. Well, Kirsten, always a pleasure to visit with you. Thank you. I know it's difficult to talk about, but we really appreciate the information.
Oh, thank you. Have a great weekend.
Take care, Kirsten. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that's Kirsten Pabst, our county attorney. We're up against a break, and in about 20 minutes, we'll be visiting with another public official, Attorney General Tim Fox, who's going to be on the phone. So between now and then, we have open phones.
That's right.
So 721-1290, we'll be right back.
Hey, Missoula parents. Are you looking for the perfect summer camps for your kiddos this summer? Look no further than Mismo Gymnastics Camp Mo Fun. Mismo offers weekly theme camps all summer long with fun as the focus. Come learn crazy gymnastics, experience awesome special guests, take sweet field trips, and so much more. Half-day and full-day spots are available, but don't wait to register. Camps fill up fast. Don't miss out on Missoula favorites like Princess and Superhero Camp, Ninja Zone Camp, and Fun, Flipping, and Fine Arts Camp. Mismo is your headquarters for summer fun.
Hey, we're back. This is Talk Back. 721-1290 is the number. It's open phones for the next few minutes. And, John, you had one of those wonderful cuts that you come up with from the Daily News.
Well, yeah, this is a clip. This is something that ABC News has been following up on since 2012, apparently. And to give you a little bit of background, there's this guy, his name is Rajiv Fernando, and they couldn't figure out why he was appointed to a high level. It's the International Security Council. Okay? The guy had no background in international security at all. They don't know why he got there.
Just a really nice guy.
But for those out there that are, stalwart for Hillary Clinton, they're really supporting her, they think she would be great, I think it's important to ask the question why, and especially when you look at stories like this one.
Okay, so here we go. This is the story from ABC News.
Out this morning is raising questions about a donor to the Clinton Foundation and how he ended up on a government intelligence advisory board. ABC's Brian Ross is here with more on that story. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, Amy. The newly released State Department emails being made public here this morning reveal how Undersecretary of State Hillary Clinton, a major donor to the Clinton Foundation, was put on a sensitive government security advisory board, even though he had no known experience in the area. Members of the State Department's International Security Advisory Board include some of the country's most prominent figures on American nuclear strategy, all with top-secret clearances. But in 2011, the Clinton State Department also added this man, Rajiv Fernando, a wealthy Chicago commodities broker with no known connection to the national security world.
I'd like to invite to the stage Raj Fernando.
What he was known for before and after his appointment was raising and giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to Democratic campaigns and as much as $250,000 to the Clinton Foundation.
ABC News, you have just a second to talk here?
When we approached Fernando at the 2012 Democratic Convention.
How did you get appointed to that board? Can you talk about that?
How do you know my name, out of curiosity?
He became upset, and we were threatened with arrest.
Yeah, this is I think the property will be arrested.
I'll be arrested for asking questions of this man?
But now the new set of State Department emails, obtained after a lawsuit brought by Citizens United, reveals the role of Clinton Chief of Staff Cheryl Mills in appointing the big donor. with a senior career official using the shorthand S, a common reference to Secretary Clinton. The true answer is simply that S staff, Cheryl Mills, added him. Raj was not on the list sent to S. He was added at their insistence.
I don't know who will be giving money.
At her confirmation hearing, Clinton vowed foundation donors would not receive special treatment.
That will not influence, it will not be in the atmosphere.
The new Clinton emails also show that when ABC began asking questions about the appointment of Fernando in 2011, top Clinton aide Cheryl Mills asked the press officer to stall for 24 hours. The very next day, Fernando submitted his resignation from the prestigious board. The Clinton campaign declined to comment on our story, and the State Department said it's not unusual for the Secretary's chief of staff to play a role. As for Fernando, he has continued to raise big dollars for the Clinton campaign and has given more than $1 million to the Clinton Foundation. In fact, he'll be one of her superdelegates at next month's convention, Amy.
And Brian, this morning there is another new report about Hillary's emails on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, linking them to some potentially sensitive messages about drone strikes overseas.
That's right. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the ongoing FBI investigation is focusing on these messages sent by American diplomats in Pakistan about pending drone attacks, which ended up on her personal email server. But the Journal also says the messages were vaguely worded and did not use the terms CIA or drone. ABC News has not been able to independently confirm the Journal's report, Amy.
Now, remember a couple months ago when we were told there was nothing in the emails?
Right.
This sounds a lot like quid pro quo. This is you getting something for giving something. You give me money, I give you a position.
Well, there are reports,
which is illegal.
There are reports that the Saudi royal family has claimed that they are financing 20% of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Now, I don't know if that's just the claim. I don't know if that's actually true, but if it is true. You want to talk about foreign influence in American government? Are you kidding me?
And that's the thing that's most scary. One of the things people really liked about Bernie Sanders is it didn't look like he could be bought.
Right, yeah.
Right?
$47 was the average,
When it comes to Hillary Clinton, it's clear that she can be bought. And that's what's really scary. All right, let's
get to the phone. Let's say good morning to Joe. Joe, thank you for holding. Sir, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic. What's up?
Hey, I just got back to town, and I noticed in an article about the city council, a couple of communists have showed up and want gun control. What's going to be done about these people?
What do you mean? What's going to be done? They were voted into office by their wards.
Yeah, so. I realize that. But the thing is, this thing in Orlando was not gun control, it was terrorism. And they don't seem to know the difference between gun control and terrorism. Now, is there a way to recall these clowns?
I'm not sure. I think Montana does have some recall statutes, but I don't know how they work. I've never seen it happen in my lifetime.
Well, let's put it this way. From what I understand, most of the people who are in favor of this ordinance were elected by a pretty good majority of their wards. So,
a majority of those that voted, like all 12 of the people that came out.
Exactly. I realize that the city council, elections don't draw a huge amount of people, but the people that did vote, the majority of them voted for those people. So there you go.
Right. And they're downtown, aren't they?
Well, the wards represent every part of the city. So.
Yeah. One other thing. You're talking about security clearances for these people. Do you know that the president can't even qualify for a security clearance?
Why cannot the president qualify for a security clearance?
Well, I held a top secret expanded background investigation clearance for the Air Force.
Okay.
All right. Anytime that you have a communist affiliation, doesn't matter what, the John Birch Society, if you were a member of that, you are automatically disqualified for a security clearance. Any type of people that you would be involved with, like Bill Ayers or any of the others, you could not hold a security clearance. And believe me, they checked. Well, they did. I was in SAC years ago. But people like Obama can't even hold that security clearance, and neither can Clinton.
Well, she was he's the president. She was the Secretary of State, so it's difficult for me to comprehend why they didn't have security clearance.
I'm sure they have security of at least the amount that you. I mean, they at least have emails showing that they had the security. Whether or not they should have been released, we shouldn't see those, but I guess that they did.
Well, Joe, that's very enlightening, sir.
Well, all I wanted to say was the average individual that goes in the military has to qualify for those clearances, but politicians are exempt.
I guess so. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call. We're up against a break. 721-1290 is our number. I don't think I would qualify.
No, definitely not. Look at all the associations we've had on
I know,
Talkback.
and not only that,
We're
but
the most suspicious people in America.
I'm clumsy. I fall off ladders. I stick my hands in snowblowers. Who would trust me with a firearm? Anyway,
sir, we'll give you a security clearance when you jump over that wall.
We'll be right back.
It begins with snowmelt from Alaskan mountains, and from there, it gets wild. For a brief time every year, the Copper River is famous for its salmon, king salmon. Over 2 million salmon participate in the famous Copper River Run, and some find their way to the mustard seed. For a limited time with limited availability, the seed is sauteing and serving fresh Copper River king salmon in your choice of Singapore-style butter or their famous teriyaki sauce. Copper River king salmon, a seasonal special at the Mustard Seed, Southgate Mall, Missoula.
Particularly apropos since Sunday is Father's Day. Hope my kids are listening. Of course, one kid is in England. So anyway, let's
real quick.
Yeah,
we got callers, but we also have Facebook.
Post.
Matt says, wasn't the Saudi family closely aligned with the Bush family also?
I believe it was.
It was, and they've been closely aligned with the United States since the Cold War.
Right.
Like it or hate it. There's ties with the country with a significant population of people there that would like to see us dead.
But I'm wondering, have they ever really been involved financially speaking, in such a visible way in an actual political campaign trying to get someone? Yeah,
totally.
Okay.
Yeah, they send money all the time. So by the way, the Chinese did. Remember Hillary Clinton got in trouble with the nuclear secrets traded?
That's right. Yeah.
Matt also says, while not directly spoken, isn't quid pro quo a standard practice in getting legislation passed, as well as getting political appointments? Some may not be direct, but there are a lot that are indirectly done.
Well, sure, that's the name of the game in politics. Especially when you're a freshman.
Well, quid pro quo is illegal. Okay, everybody should know this. If someone is accusing you of taking money and then doing something with your political office because you're getting money, that's illegal. You should lose your job over it.
I'm not talking accepting money. I'm saying, okay, if you vote for my lands bill, then I'll vote for your,
trade-offs, things like that.
Yeah,
but that's legislator to legislator.
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah. What people are accusing people of here, right, is, okay, the energy company is giving money to a politician.
Right.
And they want the politician to vote this way on this bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's a chicken and the egg problem. Did the politician vote that way on that bill because the energy gave him money, or did the politician vote that way on the bill because they believe in it, and the energy company also believes in that because of free speech and stuff? So they're supporting the politician they believe in. All interesting questions.
And that's one of the reasons why people are so upset about Citizens United, because they feel like
right. And then the other big question here is, okay, all of this stuff aside, if you believe this guy had his job legitimately, why, when the question was first raised and it came out through the emails, why did he immediately quit his job?
Gee, John, I don't know. Let's get Catherine on the line. Hi, Catherine.
Good morning.
What's up?
Okay. Well, that all of that, what you're talking about is called rent seeking, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Laureate International University, I don't know if you've ever heard about it. It's a for-profit university. Bill Clinton has been affiliated with it for quite a while. He is now resigned, but
that's right. Yeah, he sued them and won, right?
I think so. Well, okay. He received over $16.3 million from them for speeches that he's given over the last several years.
Okay.
But the founder and chairman of the Laureate International University, a man by the name of Douglas Becker, received during the same time approximately $55 million from the State Department and approximately $150 million from an affiliate of the World Bank. And there are allegations, if you will, that the Clintons were paying themselves out of State Department funds.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I thought so. But, we're not hearing anything about that. We're just hearing about Trump University, and Donald Trump has made not $16.3 million.
Well, this is a Fox Business story, broke on 6/15, so it's fairly recent. It says the Clintons are adding another check to their list of questionable practices as their connection with the Laureate International Universities paid Bill Clinton $16.5 million. The payments were between 2010 and 2014 to the presumptive first gentleman to serve as honorary chancellor of the for-profit universities and college. Laureate Education's founder, Douglas Becker, is also chairman of the board at International Youth Foundation. Through grants, the International Youth Foundation received donations from the U.S. Department of State for many years.
What do I have to do? Do I have to go anywhere? Do I have to say anything?
Yeah, this guy should not be near the Youth Foundation.
But I do feel your pain. Just make sure the check has my name correctly written on it there.
Oh, well, I know. I mean, the interconnections are rather interesting, aren't they?
Wow.
Anyway,
it just sometimes, and this is just me. Sometimes it makes me want to say, you know what? I'm done with politics. I'm done. I'm not going to vote anymore. I'm not going to go to any more rallies. I'm not going to, because the whole stinking mess has become so polluted with special interests and money, and it just, I don't know. It grosses me out sometimes.
Well, hey, thanks for your call, Catherine. We got to go to a break.
Thanks, Catherine. And we do have a special guest on the line, one of our other friends of the show, Tim Fox, who is the Attorney General for the state of Montana, is going to be joining us right after this break, and we will be right back. We're back on Talkback. Talkback brought to you this morning by Western Montana, New Holland, south of the Y on Highway 10, across from the Axeman. Spray Green Lawn, providing lawn aeration services. Call 207-9273. Get 15% off your first application. At Office City, celebrating 100 years in business. I see them for office supplies, furniture, price match guarantee, and free next day delivery. All right, here we are. Attorney General Tim Fox joining us on the phone. Tim, good morning and welcome, sir.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How are things in your neck of the woods?
Pretty fantastic. I know that you have been really working hard, along with members of our congressional delegation, trying to stop this Waters of the U.S. thing in the EPA. What's the progress so far?
Well, yeah, as you recall, John, the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers issued some rules last year that basically involve a sweeping expansion of their authority over people's property and water. And I think there's 28 states now have sued the federal government over this rule, and that case is pending. We've been successful at the initial stages of the case in getting an injunction to stop the government from implementing these rules while we go towards getting the merits of the case heard. But in the meantime, we just received a great decision from the United States Supreme Court in a case where a peat moss mining company, of all things, wanted to expand their mine, and the Army Corps of Engineers said that the Clean Water Act basically prohibited them from doing that without getting a permit. And, oh, by the way, they basically said, you probably won't get your permit. And long story short, they also said that the federal government said you really don't have any recourse. You either have to apply for the permit and hope that you get it and spend $300,000 or $400,000 in the process, or if you expand your mine without the permit, you risk going to jail and being fined. But you don't have any right to appeal our decision. Well, the federal United States Supreme Court said no. That's a final agency action. It is appealable, and oh, by the way, federal government, you are wrong. And the great thing about it is as we work through our case, the Waters of the U.S. case, that includes 28 other state attorneys general suing the federal government, there was some great language in this Minnesota case that we believe kind of foretells that we have a better chance than not of winning when our case gets to the Supreme Court, probably next year.
It just seems to me, as I read some of the news releases on these decisions, especially by the U.S. Supreme Court, is that more and more of the justices from a wider variety of philosophical bents are really not happy with the EPA and the Obama administration in this particular bent.
That's true. And as you know, we were able to stop the so-called Clean Power Plan that was, again, a federal overreach and a huge expansion of the federal government's authority. And, President Obama has essentially decided that he's going to use the waning months of his tenure as president to trample on the Constitution, go around Congress and the separation of powers. And that's what state attorneys general are there for. And so I will continue to be standing in the gap. Hopefully I'll get reelected, get another 4 years, and come what may, we'll have state attorneys general to make sure that the federal government doesn't get out of line.
Okay, we have a caller who wants to say hello. JR, you're on with Tim Fox. Go ahead.
Yeah, you were just talking about protecting Wyoming from those waters of the USA, but you did nothing to protect us from this taking of the CSKT water compact in western Wyoming, where they're taking our water on reservation and off reservation. And now Senator Tester just introduced a $2.3 billion bill with that compact, $2.3 billion attached to it, which is outrageous.
Well, JR, I'm sorry you're misinformed on that, but certainly...
Thanks for the call, JR.
We know that water is important in Montana. What's the saying? Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting, right?
Right. Mark Twain, I think that.
And so that's why in 1979 the legislature set up the Water Compact Commission to try to negotiate all of the water rights of the various tribal nations in Montana, including the water rights of the federal government. Of course, all of those rights predated statehood. And to date, the legislature and the state of Montana has negotiated, I believe it's 19, and the CSKT Water Compact was the last of those to be negotiated. It was a great process. And it, basically the reason that the legislature went that route was they saw their neighboring states getting into long, drawn-out, expensive lawsuits that pitted neighbor against neighbor. And so this state CSKT Water Compact, of course, was supported by the Stock Growers Association, the Montana Farm Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, on and on and on, because what we didn't want to do was have to reopen the settled water rights of over two-thirds of the state in the event there wasn't an agreement with the CSKT tribe. So it was the right thing to do, and it was a difficult thing, obviously, because there's so many working parts to it. But my bottom line is that it had to be constitutional, and it had to adhere to the rule of law and not violate the law. There are a lot of ways to skin a cat, and arguably there could have been other ways to come to a resolution on that water compact. But bottom line is that we believe that it follows the law and adheres to the law. So I sure respect JR's opinions. There's a very vocal minority that feels the way he does, and we'll see how it all shakes out.
Oh, I was curious, when it comes to the Waters of the U.S. ruling, were Montana businesses directly affected? Was that a Montana business, the Peat Moss business you mentioned?
That was North Dakota.
That was North Dakota.
Yeah, right, yeah. It was North Dakota. And interestingly, the part of the land that this company wanted to mine was owned by the state of North Dakota, and so the state of North Dakota was involved in it. And, these kinds of rulings and rules by the federal government don't just impact individual businesses or individual persons. They impact entire states like Montana, and they're very onerous. And, hopefully we'll prevail in the Waters of the U.S. suit ultimately. I have every confidence that we will.
Now, I understand we have a little bit of a tiff with the state of Delaware. I was hoping you could tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, interestingly...
We could take them. We're bigger than them.
Way bigger. We could eat them and you wouldn't even know.
We could put Delaware in Ekalaka.
We're better looking and smarter, too, right? Yeah, so this is an interesting situation. Every state in the nation has an abandoned property law. And even Montana, if you go, I think it's to the Department of Revenue's website, there's an abandoned property site on there, and you can find property that has not been claimed, all sorts of different things, tax refunds, you name it, bank accounts that have laid dormant for a long time, et cetera. And for a long time, Delaware, the state of Delaware, has been taking the position that property that has been unclaimed from MoneyGrams and traveler's checks should go to them because the companies that issued those things are incorporated in Delaware. And unfortunately for Delaware, the federal government has a statute, as do many of the states, including Montana, that says otherwise. And Delaware's collected over $200 million in abandoned MoneyGrams and traveler's checks, and about 1.1 million of that was issued in Montana, and they refused to turn that over to the states. So 22 of us, I believe, 22 states have sued Delaware. And do you guys know where the original jurisdiction for a case in which one state sues another state might be?
I do not,
I'm
sir.
guessing Montana.
No, actually, when one state sues another, the case is filed in the United States Supreme Court.
Wow.
So,
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, you go directly to the U.S. Supreme Court. So there are 22 states suing the state of Delaware over this $200 million, and we're hopeful that we'll prevail there. And timing's good. As you know, President Obama's war on coal and war on fossil fuels has really impacted Montana's tax revenues, and our budget surplus has dwindled by about half, and we could use a little infusion of extra revenues because of that.
Sure. I was just thinking that I know one of the titles that you hold as Attorney General, you're also the head of the State Highway Patrol, the Montana Highway Patrol, and there are a few people in this world I respect more than highway patrolmen because those troopers, they don't get to go out in pairs. They're out all by themselves. There's men and women. They're in every, the furthest reaches of Montana, north, south, east, and west. They're driving on the highways. They're pretty much alone. And they're almost always the first ones to arrive at the scene of a terrible accident. And they have to take charge of things, and pretty amazing people.
They really are. And they not only travel our roads and byways to keep people safe and uphold the law, they also are oftentimes the nearest backup for our local law enforcement folks, sheriff's deputies and police officers. When they make a call for help, it's usually a highway patrolman who's the first on the scene to help out, back them up. And they see some horrendous things. As you guys know, the highway fatalities in Montana this year are on a trajectory to exceed, for sure, last year and maybe many, many years. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but ultimately it's the choices we make as drivers that cause those problems, whether it be accidents or ultimately fatalities. Certainly the biggest factor in those fatalities is about 70% of the people that die on our roads weren't using their seatbelt. And if they had, they'd likely still be here with us today. Certainly other choices like drinking and driving, driving distracted by talking on your cell phone, going too fast for the conditions. Those are the major factors in all of the accidents on our highways in Montana, and certainly in factors in the fatalities. And that's why we're going to be, beefing up our patrols over the 4th of July weekend, which is coming up soon. We just want to encourage Montanans to start planning ahead, get a designated driver if you need to. Just don't drink and drive if you're going to be enjoying the holiday in that way. And certainly buckle up and encourage others in your car to buckle up, and hopefully you'll arrive safely.
All right. Let's get one more quick call in. Catherine, real quickly. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to go back to the water issue for a second, and I was wondering if Mr. Fox was following the Columbia River Basin renegotiations of that treaty. because that will affect the water issues in Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Wyoming, because the new negotiations, which is with Canada, is going to elevate to primary purpose the ecosystem-based functions, environmental systems, rather than economic considerations.
All right. Thanks, Catherine. We got to go because he's got to go quick, okay?
Yeah, real quick, Catherine. Yeah, we monitor all of those outside of Montana situations, whether it be the rivers or the coal ports in Washington and Oregon, all of those different things that have an impact on Montana. And we want to make sure that Montanans have a seat at the table, if you will, and that Montana's best interests are considered and upheld. So there's actually a lawsuit over the Columbia River that's been going on for years, and Montana's been heavily involved in that. We have attorneys working on that case all the time. So, yes, we do pay attention to that, and yes, we get involved when we need to.
Tim, I know you're out of time. Thanks for sharing this time with us. We appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, gentlemen, and have a great weekend, and I hope your listeners all will buckle up.
And by the way, happy Father's Day this weekend.
Hey, thank you,
all
and
right.
to you as well.
You take care, sir. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Right. That's Tim Fox, Attorney General for the state of Montana. All right, so we can rock on until 9:50 if you want, because I kind of blew out that one break. So,
sure.
So
you don't want.
We'll just take one. We'll take
it?
one big break at 9:50. How's that sound?
Fine. Sounds
right.
good to me.
Yeah.
I suppose so. So yeah, we've got looks like a Facebook comment here.
Okay.
Elena says, "How can he be against this federal water grab, waters of the U.S., but support the CSKT water compact, which in essence turns Montana water over to the feds in trust for the tribe?"
Good question. Anyway,
and
I guess it all depends on how you see it, and your interpretation of the compact and all that. So there are some that think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Others think that people were betrayed. I mean, there doesn't seem to be very much middle ground.
Everyone seems to be a little mad about it.
Yeah.
Which is usually a good sign.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and take our break right now. 721-1290 is our number, and we are coming right back. We're rocking out, dude. All right, 721-1290 is the number. All right, so here we go. It's open phones. We have Dean and Mike both waiting very patiently. Let's jump right in here. Dean, good morning. You're on Talkback, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. I just wanted to make a comment about the Mercantile. I grew up here also as a kid, and I think it's a neat building and everything else. But sometimes, if the people that want to save it now, why didn't they jump in? How many years has it been sitting empty? And I've seen a few places kind of get in there, but it just doesn't last. And it's like you can only kick a dead horse so much. And if it comes down to where this is going to turn into another mountain water project, and the taxpayers are going to end up picking up the bill to try and renovate this thing, I just don't know that it's worth it.
Well, actually, that might be the best way to go, Dean, because it seems like the taxpayers of Missoula will be willing to pay for anything.
The problem is finding a business that wants to pay the taxes.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
I hear you.
I mean, if the building's slowly falling apart, it's like it's just sometimes you just have to get rid of something. And I'm sorry to tell the people that. And I'm not saying I want a Marriott or anything else there.
Well,
I'm just saying that.
Here's what I'm waiting for, okay? When I turn 160 years old, okay?
Which is like 2 years from now.
And whatever is there now, the people are clamoring, we've got to save the Marriott. It's in a I can't wait for that.
I don't know how much. We're not sure how much it'd cost to rebuild you, Peter.
Oh, well, yeah. You got $1.95. I think that'll handle.
Actually, you can ask.
You can
ask Bone and Joint about how much. We have at least how much it costs to restructure his arm.
That's right. My left wrist. I have my own wing at Bone and Joint with my name on it. Mike, good morning. You're on Talkback.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I have a water rights issue real quick. My brother's visiting from Colorado. He's interested in buying some land there, and he can't drill a well, and he can't suck out of a nearby spring because of the water issues there. And then, so he can't even install a cistern where water collects off the roof.
Sure.
Because of an agreement that Colorado has with California, and so you can't even suck water out of the sky.
So are you allowed to have a rain barrel?
No.
No,
That's
nothing?
That's California's water. California says that's our water.
Wow.
And so he can't even do that. So what he's going to do is put probably an illegal well, and that's just what these water issues do to people. They resort to desperate measures. They rent a tripod with an engine on top that you can buy for a couple $1,000s, and you just wind up drilling your own well, and nobody knows about it. He'll be hooked up to solar. He'll be off the grid. So, but it's just sad that
you know he's going to get caught.
It's a pretty
Well,
maybe.
now
I hear his brother's ratting him out on radio. So
well, yeah.
let me ask you this, Mike.
My name's not Mike, by the way. It's Jihad Jamie.
I was going to say Jihad Jamie is not probably the best way to announce yourself.
There's an old axiom that I've always lived by, and you tell me if your brother's going to do this, and that's much easier to get forgiveness than it is to get permission.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I want to see these California water Nazis slapping people's wrists when they open their mouths up while it's raining.
Oh, yeah.
You splashed in my mud puddle, you're going to jail.
Or if you're walking through the fog, you can't. Yeah.
Sorry, your skin is too moist.
Okay, well, Bob, Frank, thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Jim Bob Frank boy.
It just rolls off the tongue.
I know. Just pick a name, any name. All right, we have exactly 4 minutes, Mr.
4
Show
minutes.
Producer. Yeah.
Well, I've got another clip that I want you to play. So,
All right.
do you know who Julian Assange is?
Yes.
Okay, this is the guy that does WikiLeaks. He got in big trouble with the United States. We're trying to get him in trouble for exposing some of our stuff.
Got it.
Well, he apparently has all of Hillary Clinton's emails.
Oh, wow.
And is preparing to, well, I don't know if he has them all. He has a significant amount of them and is planning on posting them online. He says he will do it.
Wow.
Here's an interview he had on British television. I can't remember the name. If you could read it off there.
Preston on Sunday.
That's the name.
Peston on Sunday.
Peston on Sunday.
Here we go.
Hillary Clinton, who's now the Democratic candidate for the presidency. You've been taking an interest, I understand, in the whole issue of the emails she sent. You're using her private server. Do you have any of the undisclosed emails?
Well, taking interest, I think, is putting it mildly. We've published 32,000 of them in some analysis. We have upcoming leaks in relation to Hillary Clinton, which is great. We actually have WikiLeaks has a very big year ahead.
But some of the ones that have not yet come into the public domain, you are planning to put out.
We have emails related to Hillary Clinton, which are pending publication. That is correct. There's very strong material, both in the emails and in relation to the Clinton Foundation. For example, we publish an email where Hillary Clinton is instructing her staff to remove the classified header of a classified document and send it by non-classified fax. So that it just requires one more thing, which is to show that the document was actually sent. But she instructed her staff to violate those classification procedures in the United States. Of course, I think personally a lot of these procedures are ridiculous, but Hillary Clinton has been pushing to prosecute others, and so has Barack Obama, who violate technically these procedures.
Very briefly, I mean, plainly what you are saying and what you've been publishing hurts Hillary Clinton. Would you prefer Trump to be president?
Well, I think Trump is a completely unpredictable phenomenon. You can't predict what he would do in office. You can predict a bit more what the Republican Party would do in office. From my personal perspective, well, you know, the emails we published show that Hillary Clinton is receiving constant updates about my personal situation. She has pushed for the prosecution of WikiLeaks, which is still in train. So we do see her as a bit of a problem for freedom of the press more generally. In relation to wars, the emails we revealed about her involvement in Libya and statements by Pentagon generals show that Hillary was overriding the Pentagon's reluctance to overthrow Muammar Gaddafi. because they predicted that the post-war outcome would be something like what it is, which is ISIS taking over the country. It's Hillary who was the leading champion in office to do that. She has a long history of being a liberal war hawk.
There you go.
Okay. Well, there you go. So we have, by the way, happy Father's Day, everybody, on Sunday. Take your dad out, give him a token gift.
What do you want for Father's Day, Peter?
And then make him mow the lawn.
You want a necktie?
No.
A straitjacket?
I'd like to have my daughter home from Great Britain and my son all together to cook me a magnificent barbecue. Maybe a hot dog. That'd be great.
There you go. I'll put that on Facebook for you. Peter wants a hot dog.
This is a hot dog.
Nothing spicy on the hot dog.
No, thank you. Just a hot dog, maybe a bun.
He'll take 3 bites of the hot dog and be finished, but that's what he wants.
Anyway, don't forget the Health Talk coming up on Monday, and then we have open phones.
Yeah, I believe so.
You guys have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day, and please be extra careful out there and enjoy the beautiful sunshine all next week.